Hey there, Andy here. Let's take a look at Arkham Horror, the card game. This is a game we have not done a ton of coverage on this channel before, but I love it dearly. I've played it for many, many hours, and I would like to take a look at some of the gameplay, but also at some of the new expansion types they're going to be putting out, because they're making some big changes in this game right now. So, as a quick primer, this is a game that is uniquely for exactly 1 to 2 players. When you get the core game, it is built to be for solo play or for 2-player cooperative mode. Now, you're going to be going through mysteries as investigators, kind of in a noir type world, but with extra dimensional horrors and ancient evils that have been lurking and are trying to destroy all of humanity most of the time. So we're here to stop that. As I say, this game is for 1 to 2 players exactly, and it's for 1 to 2 players who are looking for a bit of a commitment. So this game plays in campaigns, and each campaign you start, you're going to spend some time building an entirely new investigator deck. You're going to play that deck throughout the entire campaign, and you're going to be upgrading it and changing it as you go. You also are going to play that campaign for about 8 scenarios, so that tends to be about 8 sit-downs. Sometimes you could play a couple scenarios in one sitting, but the game is also hard, so a lot of times you're going to lose a scenario and either choose to start that scenario over or start the entire campaign over, kind of up to how you want to play the game. I love the game for its immersive storylines, and just the gameplay is a little bit dire at all times. It feels like every single move you make makes a ton of difference, and it actually takes some know-how and some experience as a player to start making your way through those campaigns. So there's a great learning curve as well. So as I say, a bit of a commitment, but super rewarding if you happen to make that commitment. Alright, let's take a look at all of the different expansion types they have released for this, starting with the core game, which is not an expansion type. So, core game, originally, was this box here. This is the original Arkham Horror. This has all of the stuff you need for up to two players to dive into this game. It has got 5 different investigator options, cards for all of them to play. The core game and the entire expansion set as well features 5 different types of cards for 5 different investigation types. So you get to kind of choose the investigator who's going to use the type of cards and abilities you'd like to use, and then play them for the duration of that campaign. This box also has a three scenario campaign, I should say. So this is enough to sit down for 3 scenarios and play through a starting campaign, and it is no easier than any of the others. I will tell you right now, I've never beaten the core box campaign using only cards from this box, so it's always been like this great challenge to keep coming back to and try to defeat. In the spirit of Arkham Horror, you're supposed to lose, right? So that is that core box. Now they have just released the revised core set. So this is the same idea as the original core set. In fact, this box features the exact same 3 scenario campaign as the original did. It is a bigger box because they've put more cards in here. They've changed up some of the art, some of the investigator art and card art here and there, but the real main difference that this has from the original is that they've added in some extra options for upgrading your cards. Each card in the game has the potential to be upgraded to a higher level version of itself, and they've put more of those in this box so that as a starting out investigator, you have got immediate options with just this box to start upgrading your investigator beyond their core setup. So that is what this one is. For anyone who has collected all of the current expansions for the game, this box has no unique content that you don't already have, so this would be one for somebody who's starting fresh or somebody who just wants to completionist collect everything that has been made for the game. But this is all currently existing content packed into one box for new players to jump in with. So that is the revised core set. Moving right along from there, we're going to look at how the expansion setup for this game used to work. That has been changed recently. So most of the currently existing expansions have all been released in boxes. I don't have one here to show, but slightly smaller than this that begin your campaign. They're going to be a box about this size that have 2 scenarios for a new campaign in it. That also has tons of new investigator cards. So there will be actual new investigators in those, as well as tons of new options to add into all of your investigators decks in those 5 different colors that we talked about, as well as a neutral blank color card type. Each of those campaigns then expands into another 6 of these scenario packs. So that makes up your 8 scenario campaign is 1 base box of 2, and then 6 smaller scenario packs to expand that campaign into a full 8 scenario campaign. Each of these also has about half and half investigator cards to add into your decks and 1 scenario. So this is a full setup for a single scenario playthrough that will forever be part of that campaign in your collection. And these campaigns are totally replayable. We replay the same campaigns but with different investigators all the time, and there are different options you can take throughout the campaign and different ways that the action can unfold. So it's not just going to be the exact same walkthrough every time you replay a campaign. So that is how things used to work. Base core box for a campaign followed by 6 scenario packs in that campaign. But now they have recently released some new ways to do things. Oh, before I talk about that, we're going to talk about the return tos. These long boxes, which are made largely for storage for your campaigns, are also going to have add-in content for the campaign they are a return to. So this is a return to the Circle Undone. This has got add-in content for each of the 8 scenarios in the Circle Undone that make it so you can switch up that scenario slightly and add some new mechanics and different twists and turns. So this is a great way to revisit campaigns you have already been all the way through and add in even more cool different stuff. So that's the return to boxes, which are also part of the classic expansion setup. Okay, now that we've talked about that, we can talk about how things work nowadays. This is the first of the new expansion types, Edge of the Earth. So what they've done now is they say, cool, we'd like to make a campaign. Everybody who would like to play that campaign has some options here, though. They have split the campaign between 2 large boxes. This is the entire 8 scenario campaign here, so this is an entire campaign content box. First thing they released just before the other this time was the Investigator box. This is going to include all of the Investigator cards that are made available as a part of this campaign. So there are 5 Investigators in this box, as well as just tons of cards, somewhere in the realm of, what do they say here, 5 new Investigators and 228 player cards, as well as a rules booklet to cover some of that stuff. So this is all the new Investigator content for those who wish to pick it up. You can also just play through the campaign without any new Investigator content if you want to, though. This is the campaign box, which is even bigger than the Investigator box there. This one has got, let me get a card count on this one, 343 scenario cards and 40 new tokens for the game. So this is that huge campaign all in one box. Likewise to how the kind of pick and choose what you want way this worked is you could play through this entire campaign using only Investigators that you already owned, and you don't actually need to play this campaign to use these Investigators. You could play these Investigators through past campaigns and future campaigns without ever picking up the Edge of the Earth campaign. So that's how they're splitting things up now. I expect most folks will want to pick up both of these boxes, but I like that they put it all into one big chunk so that you don't have to buy each individual scenario pack as you go, and you'll have access to the entire content for that campaign right in this chunk. All right, let's try a little bit of this game, shall we? All right, let's give it a try. I have got us set up here for the first scenario in the base game box titled The Gathering. This is going to be the title card for each of the scenarios, and each of them is going to have a portion of the campaign guide that we're going to follow for setup. So this is the campaign guide for the entire Night of the Zealot, which is the full core box campaign of 3 scenarios. We've got a little bit of a beginning of the story text here titled The Ghoul's Hunger. We've got basic setup for the scenario, or for the campaign in its entirety actually. This is where we're going to pick which investigators we play. We're going to pick what difficulty we want to play the campaign on by assembling the Chaos Bag to suit it. The Chaos Bag is the main random factor in this game. This is where we're going to draw tokens from when we attempt skill tests. And the bummer about the tokens in this game is that just about all of them are negative numbers. So you're always happy to find a 0. A +1 is like Christmas. You saw there were some special symbols in there as well. Those have special effects, all of which are going to be listed on our current scenarios card. We'll see if we get any of those during this one. That campaign guide has also got setup specific to this scenario. It's going to tell us to gather some encounter cards from various different sets. That's going to be most of the bad stuff and the enemies we face during this one. And then some basic location setup. This one's very easy. We just have a study that Roland is currently sitting in, and a couple of cards to set aside some other locations, and a couple of special cards that I have not read through if I'm playing this through the first time, and I usually just tuck the set aside cards underneath my campaign cards, so those are cards we are likely to see later on in this scenario if we get that far. Next up, we have got the acts for this agenda. The acts are good stuff. This is mostly what we're trying to accomplish before time runs out. That's kind of how I think about these. So we've got a little bit of story text in this one as well that we'll go through in a second. As you leap to investigate, the door to your study vanishes before your eyes, leaving behind only solid wall. You're trapped inside your study until you can find another way out. This one tells me that we are going to advance this act once we have 2 clues per investigator. I'm playing on solo mode, so I just need to find 2 clues to advance that act in my investigation. Now, the agenda tends to be the bad stuff and the agenda of our foes. So what's going on? It is late at night. You are holed up in your study researching the bloody disappearances that have been taking place in the region. A few hours into your research, you hear the sound of strange chanting coming from your parlor down the hall. At the same time, you hear dirt churning as if something were digging beneath the floor. Now, this one has got a number here. That is the doom threshold for this agenda. As soon as there are 3 doom tokens on this card, we're going to move to the back of the card to see what it says happens next. So that's the entire story element of the game and what's going to progress us forward in the plot. I am going to be playing as Roland. That's one other thing I will have decided already at this point. Roland is great because he's a pretty good fighter and happens to be a decent investigator as well. So we see here Roland's various skills. We have got a special ability that he can use when he defeats an enemy. He discovers 1 clue at his location, so that's a little bit of the investigation tied in with the combat. And then each character has an effect when we draw the magical star symbol in the bag, which is always a good thing for the investigator. Backside of Roland is going to have options for deck building. So a deck size that you have to use when building a deck for Roland. I'm going to be using the base suggested starter deck for him, which it has for a couple of the characters in the rulebook. It's got some deck building options. He's only allowed to use Guardian cards level 0 through 5, Secret cards level 0 through 2, so that's the slight dip into investigation tactics there, and then neutral cards level 0 through 5, so you can have access to any neutral cards as well. Each character also has cards they must put into their deck, so we've got those listed there as well, and then some Roland flavor text. All right, the setup told me that Roland is going to start his scenario in the study. So I am going to immediately read the locked side of the study. That's where all of our cards will begin. Location cards always begin on the locked side. You've been investigating the strange events occurring in Arkham for several days now. Your desk is covered in newspaper articles, police reports, and witness accounts. A quick overview of the room. As soon as a character enters a room or a location, they're going to flip that over, and there's going to be a active side of that location. So here we see the door to your study has vanished, as we've heard already. This also lists that I'm immediately going to put 2 clues per investigator on this card, and the investigating difficulty on this location is 2, which is pretty low, thankfully. So I'm going to put 2 clue tokens on there, and we are set up to begin this game. I've got 5 resources to start. That's a constant, and then I'm also going to have 5 cards from the top of my deck to begin this round of play. Now I've got a handy-dandy round sequence card, which I refer to constantly even though I've played this game for countless hours. It's going to tell me the first thing I have to do is the Mythos phase, but I get to skip it during the first round, so we'll get to that in a sec. That's most of the bad stuff that's going to happen in the course of the game. There's an investigation phase, which I get to take 3 actions. That is my turn for this round. So I'm going to play Roland. I'm going to start playing some cards or moving around or investigating and seeing what I can do. I don't have a ton to help me with investigation at the moment. These yellow cards are decent for that, and deduction's a good investigation card. First thing I want to do, though, is get a weapon in hand, because bad stuff might start showing up very quickly here. So this is my 45 automatic. It costs 4, as you can see here. It's an asset, so it stays in front of me. I'm going to have 4 ammo to start, and I can spend that ammo as an action to make fight attempts against enemies, and it is far better than my fists are. So I'm going to spend those 4 resources just to get that 45 equipped. Those will go back to the bank. And then why not? Why don't we investigate? Let's try it. This is a deduction card, which I can always investigate, but when I investigate, I am going to use my investigation skill, which we can see on Roland is a 3. That feels okay where my difficulty is 2, but I'd like to get it even higher. So I'm going to add this extra book along the side to my skill test. Ignoring the text down below, you can always do that with a card. So I can add in any of these 3 symbols to a test that I'm attempting. I could add this symbol to a test that I'm attempting, and I'm going to use it on my deduction card. But this is a skill card, which means its ability is tied to skill tests. If this skill test is successful while investigating a location, discover 1 additional clue at that location. So I'm going to try to investigate, applying my deduction to raise my investigation skill to 4. And I'm going to draw a token. That is the skull. Let's see what the skull means this time. Skull minus X. X is the number of ghoul enemies at your current location. I have 0 of those at my current location, so that's a -0 to me. And because I used deduction, my skill test was successful. This will get discarded, and I get to discover both of those clues immediately. So this turn's going great for me already, actually. Those go to me. I can turn those in to the current agenda whenever I want to, or the current act whenever I want to. I'm going to do that right now because I need 2 per investigator to advance that act. And I'm going to flip that card over. Alright, we notice that the edges of your newly purchased rug are tattered and mud-stained. Finding that odd, you shift the furniture aside and pull back the rug. To your surprise, you see the door leading out of your study, under the rug. You slowly turn the knob and the door swings open, revealing your hallway below. You jump through the doorway, landing on your feet on soft dirt. The door of the study slams shut above you. The smell of burning wood fills the narrow hall, intermingled with the scent of rot and decay. Put into play the set-aside hallway, cellar, attic, and parlor cards. Discard each enemy in the study, which we have none of, place each investigator in the hallway, and remove the study from the game. So we're going to do a little bit of shuffle about here, where the study goes away. We've got a cellar, a parlor, a hallway, and an attic that are going to go into play. We know we're in the hallway. Let's see how I can organize my life here, which I'm going to... I'll do it thusly, let's say. Alright, and we are immediately put into the hallway. A moment of panic and disorientation strikes as you land upon the floor of the hallway. The world spins as if you turned it on its head. The walls of your house are splattered with mud, and your hardwood floor is gone, replaced with a dirt path. Now, there are no clues to be found here. The one other thing we're going to see about this location is what it's connected to. This one is connected to the blue, purple, and green locations, which are all 3 of the other ones we just put into play. This is the red square, so that's worth keeping in mind. All 3 of those have connections to the red square as well. The parlor tells me that the entrance to the parlor is blocked by a darkly glowing, unfathomable barrier, and I can't move into the parlor. I'll have to find another way into that. Now I have one more action to do this turn, and I am going to choose, I think, to make that action... Oh boy, let's just use this emergency cash to gain 3 resources, why don't we? And that'll be the end of our investigator turn and the end of this round. So, moving right on, we have the enemy phase, where enemies get to move if there are any, but there aren't. And then the upkeep phase, where we ready exhausted cards. I don't have any of those. Each investigator draws a card and gains a resource. So we found a machete. I do love the machete. And a resource there. And then we discard down to 8 cards. No worries there. Back up to the Mythos phase. Now this is the bad stuff phase. First thing we're going to do in the Mythos phase is to put a Doom on that current agenda like we talked about. That advances it toward moving on. So that's the timer we're racing against. We are going to advance the agenda Doom threshold if it's satisfied. So we're at 1 of 3. We're fine there. And then the worst part of all, we're going to each draw 1 encounter card in player order, so just me this time, and see what bad stuff we face. This is the Ancient Evils card. With I will have to place 1 more Doom on the current agenda, and this can cause it to advance, but it won't this round. Alright, I'll play through 1 more turn here, maybe fast forward a little bit as I do it, but what's going to happen next is we're right back to the investigator phase, so I'm going to try to find as much interesting stuff as I can as fast as I can. My first action this turn is going to be to move. I move into that location, the attic, and that will flip it over. There are 4 clues to be had here. That's great. Oh, here's the one thing I didn't talk about. is our current act moved on after we revealed all these locations. The new act is the barrier, which is going to tell us about the parlor barrier. The glowing barrier blocks the path to your parlor. As you move toward it, intense heat forces you to back away. Picking up a handful of dirt, you toss it at the barrier and watch in horror as the dirt incinerates. Perhaps there is something in the cellar or the attic that can help. When the round ends, investigators in the hallway may, as a group, spend the requisite number of clues to advance. So I need to find 3 clues in order to move on, and I have to be standing in the hallway to take that barrier down when the round ends. Here I am in the attic. After I enter the attic, I take 1 horror. Okay, so a horror is a type of damage. You can take physical damage or you can take horror. And you can see my survivability in the bottom right here. I have a much stronger resistance to physical damage as Roland. He is not a great psyche. He has got a kind of dark past he's coping with over the course of this entire game. So that's what we've got there. I've moved up into the attic. I mean, I could equip some more fighting power, but what I'm going to do instead, since that investigate is so low up here, is I'm just going to start plugging away at the investigation checks and try to find some clues while I'm up here. First was a +1 with that star. Roland gets a +1 for each clue on his location, which means that he gets a +3 to that check. That is a rare, nice sight. So we are going to take that clue that we've gained, and then the last thing I'll do is 1 more investigate to try to find some quick clues before time runs out. I've got this shrouded figure here, and that gives me a -1, but if I fail, I take a horror. -1 does not fail it for me, though, so things are looking good still at the moment. We'll see if they get worse at any point here. So that was my entire round. I moved and investigated twice. We're going to not activate enemies because we don't have any yet. In the upkeep phase, all I have to do is gain a resource and a card, so that's all going okay. I got another skill card that'll help me with dexterity checks here. And we're right back to the Mythos phase. So, Doom is the first thing we'll do, and that advances my agenda. Bad stuff, bad stuff. Your house continues to change before your very eyes. The walls have decayed, the ground in many rooms has turned to dirt. It's almost as if you've been transported somewhere else entirely, although every now and again you recognize elements of your former home. The lead investigator must decide. Either each investigator discards 1 card at random, or the lead investigator, which is me, because it's just me, takes 2 horror. I do not feel prepared to drop to take 3 horror out of my 5 threshold, so I'm going to choose to have each investigator, which is me, discard 1 card at random. We are losing our machete. That is a bummer, but at least we have the pistol in hand. Now, the only agenda remaining, which has a threshold of 7, this probably means doom if we let it get that high. The floor beneath you is giving way, and you see a vast network of tunnels twisting into the darkness below. Shapes and silhouettes of strange creatures move swiftly through the tunnels, trying to find a way up. You probably don't want to be here when they do. Indeed not. All right. And then the encounter card. Oop. This is a ghoul minion. This is going to spawn on top of me unless it has a spawn instruction that tells me otherwise, but it does not appear to. We've got a fight ability, number of hit points, and the difficulty of evading this minion here. It is a humanoid monster ghoul, so keep in mind it's a ghoul, and this is how much damage it does when it attacks me. And that is automatic. When a monster attacks you, it automatically succeeds, so I'd like to dispatch this fellow before that happens. He spawns at my location, and as soon as something is in the same location as me, it is going to engage me immediately. So it goes into my engaged area here, and I now have to deal with this, or it's going to be harrying me every action I take. So let's start there. I've got an enemy. I'm going to spend 1 of my ammo. I've got 4 for the 45, and make a fight attempt. So I get +1 to my fight ability, which is already a +4, and the attack deals +1 damage, and I just need to get to a 2, and then it has 2 hit points. So let's see if my luck holds out. It'd be pretty hard to fail this one, and let's see if it happens because I said it though. That's a 0. That's gone great for us. I do +1 damage, so it costs me an ammo, but +1 damage takes me to that 2 hit points, and I have dealt with this ghoul minion, which activates Roland's special ability, as we talked about. I defeated a minion on my location. I get to take a clue off my location. So I'm going to spend this turn getting back to the parlor, and that was my first action to fight that guy. I'm going to move back to the parlor, and then I guess I will draw a card while I'm here, and because I am at the parlor, or at the hallway at the end of my round. That means immediately I can shell in my 3 clues to move on past this barrier and see what happens next. And that is a little bit of gameplay sample for Arkham Horror the card game. Hope it looked fun, and if you decide to pick it up, I hope you have a fun time playing. I love this game and have played many scenarios for many hours. It can be frustrating at times, and it can be super rewarding at other times. So thank you so much for watching.